Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the short story collection Tales of Enlightenment from the High Republic by George Mann. This is a short story collection from Titan Books, which I own another short story collection from Titan Books, but this one's much shorter. And I am not, the biggest short story reader, but because this was from the High Republic, this was a new release, I thought, I may as well get it, try to follow along and read everything that I can for Star Wars. And this book is really short. You can easily breeze through it in a day. The first 60 pages of the book are dedicated to 6 short stories, basically, set on the planet Jeddah during the Phase 2 of the High Republic. So this is the one that's set, way earlier on with the Path of the Open Hand, the Force Shall Be Free, all that stuff. You can tell which phase it is because, it's got the blue symbol. If it's the kind of yellowish symbol, it's Phase 1. If it's got the blue symbol, it's Phase 2. If it's got the black symbol, it's Phase 3. But it's set in this cantina. I'd describe it more as a bar called Enlightenment, which serves all kinds of customers, no matter what your beliefs on the Force. And so we're following a few main customers here. We're following a guy named Keth Sarapath. We're following Muna Periali and the owner of the bar, Kraydon, and a few others. And they're basically interacting with people who are coming into Jeddah, coming into the bar to interact with them. There's a few Jedi who show up. And they interact with the Jedi. There's a kind of smuggler prospector that comes up. We also have some Path of the Open Hand people and some soldiers type come in. And so this book is basically following the people in the bar as they interact, and you hear stories told. And it's very much a tell, don't show type thing. The people are telling stories about their lives inside the bar. And most of the short stories have like artwork that goes along with them. That, to me, the artwork wasn't necessarily amazing. It was like, it's pretty okay. If you see the art style you see on the cover, that's pretty much the art style you see. There's a variety of artists involved, but this art style is throughout. And, this is, an interesting painting, but it's not anything amazing. So I wouldn't buy this book off the artwork alone. And so even though I said the first 60 pages are developed to the 6 stories, if you take out the artwork and take out the kind of unnecessary pages, it's really only like the first 45 pages of the book. So it's not a lot of reading, but the print size on the font in this is super small. So because of that, it probably takes a little bit longer than you would expect like a novel to read. And so these 6 short stories really only tie into one thing from the High Republic, and that's the Battle of Jeddah script. This was an audio drama that they also released the script for, which I loved reading the script. This is also by George Mann. And I would say that if you loved the Battle of Jeddah, you just thought this was the coolest thing, and you love the planet Jeddah and all this stuff, then maybe pick up this collection. But I would say this is only really necessary for absolute completionists. And even for myself, who is an absolute completionist, this is pushing it a little bit for defining what we need to get. But that's the real tie-in, is these two go together well. This tells more of a big action story, but some of the characters in this were in this book as well. And I will go ahead and tip my hand and say that there is one Jedi character from George Mann's middle grade novels. Rupert Natani does show up in one of these short stories. 5 of the short stories were present in the Star Wars Insider magazine, and only one of them is original to this. So if you read Star Wars Insider, you've basically read 5 of the 6 short stories. And then the book is about 90-ish pages, so you have 30 pages at the back of the book, which aren't short stories, but rather are dedicated to interviews with different High Republic authors. You have an interview with George Mann, an interview with Zoraida Cordova, an interview with Lydia Kang, and then an interview with all of them plus Tessa Gratton, which is like a roundtable interview. And they're talking about various things, like how they got into Star Wars, how they work with the High Republic, what their process is, which characters they latched on to, things like that. And some of the interviews were interesting. Some of them were, to be honest, rather boring. Unfortunately, while I love Zoraida and Lydia's novels in the High Republic, I thought that their High Republic novels were excellent. Their interviews just didn't add anything. They felt like they were talking in circles. So those interviews just didn't add anything. I will say George Mann did provide a little bit of insight into production and the business of public publishing stuff. And so I kind of liked George Mann's interview a little bit more. But even that, it was only a couple pages. It wasn't a ton of information, but it was a little bit more interesting. And then the round table, at times, I was like, "Ooh, there's a really cool nugget of information I love." And then there was other times in the round table interview, I was just like, "Okay, I don't care about that." So I wouldn't buy the book. I wouldn't say you have to read it because the short stories is super important. I also wouldn't say the interviews will change the way you view High Republic or anything. So there's nothing of like incredible importance. It's more, this is like a reward to people who follow everything, that they pick up on little nuggets of information and they pick up on stuff. The real nice thing that the book has is there's a guide to phase 2 at the end of the book, where they give you like a description of each book and a quote about it from the author, which is nice if instead you don't want to have to look through all the books. You just want to be like, what was that book about again? You just quickly look at this and it's like, oh yeah, that's what the book's about. That is a nice element that this book has. And then it also has the final pages are a 2-page spread that show all of the titles, all the adult, middle grade, young adult novels, the short story collections, and the comics, both the adult and young adult comics, and even the little picture books. It's got it's a full spread. In fact, I will just show you that one page real quick. It's a full spread of all of the titles, which is a really helpful guide. The problem is, this isn't an actually full guide, because I counted at least 3 titles that were missing. I counted 1 comic that was missing, 1 short story collection, this was missing from the list, and then also there was one of the editions of the manga. It wasn't, they had manga volumes 1 and 2 listed, but they didn't list the precedent, which is like the prequel manga. And so I was a little bit frustrated, a little bit miffed that it wasn't a true complete guide. It really wasn't. However, it's still, if you know going in that it doesn't have literally every single title, it was helpful, I think, for collectors, that little page at the end. But again, you could find that online again, so it's not necessary for you to go out and buy this book, which is ordinarily $20. It was on sale. It was only like $17 when I got it on Amazon. But still, it's, to me, not worth the price. Something in here to be worth the price of basically $20 or $18, however much, to be worth that kind of a price for something that you can read in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours, there has got to be a little bit more to it. There's got to be just amazing storytelling present. And the storytelling here is good. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's just good. So it doesn't make it worth the value. Think about the interviews at the end. There's some good interviews and there's some bad interviews, so it's mixed. That doesn't really bump up its value for the reader. And then the final thing is the information at the back of the book. That doesn't do it either. And I also forgot the artwork. None of the artwork is so stellar and spectacular that it's like an art book that I just have to have. And so because of that, none of the areas are spectacular. Each area only gets into the good territory. And so I'll give the book like a rating of like a 6 out of 10. But that's knowing that I'm not recommending you buy this book necessarily, because it needs to be worth the value. And that's the problem with some of the scripts sometimes. A novel, you pay $20 or $30 for, depending on, discounts and stuff. You pay $20 or $30 for a new novel, and you're sitting there for 8, 10, 12, sometimes 15 hours devouring that novel. And then you have the scripts, which I usually can devour in a matter of like 3 hours, 4 hours. And at least, like, the reason that the Battle of Jeddah script was so great was it told a spectacular story, and I was hooked. And the story really tied into everything, and it added so much to the High Republic, and it was crucial and all this stuff. And so I felt there was value to this. This took a little bit longer to read than Tales of Enlightenment, but I mean, it wasn't that much more. And you're like, whoa, look at the difference. It's because the font size in here is ridiculously small when it's present, whereas the font size here is pretty big. But at least this, I feel, the Battle of Jeddah script feels important and necessary to the story. It feels like if you didn't have this, you'd miss a beat element of the story. If you didn't have this, you would not miss anything. There would just be details that you're missing, and that's unfortunate. So I can't give this a recommendation that you buy it, but if you see it at a local store, if you see it for, like a really reduced price, or it's in your library or something, maybe you can pick it up, especially if you're a High Republic completionist. I will be curious. I do eventually want to go and get the one of these story collections that was for Phase 1 that had multiple authors involved, because this one, all 6 stories are by George Mann. I would be interested in reading that and see how they compare, see if one of them's more important than the other, which one's seems more valuable. But still, I just feel this was an okay collection, and I'm really disappointed that it didn't feel more necessary. So if you've read Tales of Enlightenment, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.